regards to Purim, Chazal say, or sages tell us, that the Nes of Purim, the miracle of Purim, is Nes Shebachutz La'aretz, is a miracle that occurs in the diaspora. And that seems to be an important part of the entire story of Purim, is that the story occurs, unlike all the stories of all the events that we celebrate throughout the entire year, was either events that occurred after going out of Egypt in the journey to get to Eretz Yisrael, to get into Israel, get into the Promised Land, or miracles that occurred in the land of Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, like the story of Hanukkah. And Purim occurs in Jewish history in a time period between the first and second Beis Hamikdash, first and second temple, and the times of exile. And therefore, the Nes of Purim, the miracle of Purim, is a Nes Shebachutz La'aretz, a miracle that's connected specifically to exile. In contrast to other miracles, which is a miracle that's connected to a redemptive state, a state where the opposite of exile. Exile is an alienation, a separation, a place after the Churban, after the place of destruction. It occurs in a time of history that it's towards the end of the prophetic state, the age of prophecy. The final prophets are living in that time period. The minor prophets, the major prophets already have all passed on. Yecheskel, Yeshaya, Yirmiyahu, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, all the great prophets of Israel already passed. And they're living in this. The story is that we are at this point in exile, dispersed, alienated from the land of Israel, and mefuzar mefayir ben amim. The Yeshna Am Echad, this is what Haman says. Haman says that there's Yeshna Am Echad, there is a nation that is mefuzar mefayir ben amim, that are completely dispersed and spread apart amongst the nations. Yeshna Am Echad means yashan, the idea of sleep, that they're asleep for mitzvahs, sleep a spiritual practice, a Jewish practice, and they're in a state of exile and they're dispersed. The main idea is that they're dispersed, they're no longer in their location. They're in a place of exile. So to understand this, what is the idea of Purim? When we say that Purim is a time of exile, it's a time of when we are no longer living in the land of Israel, which on one hand seems to be a diminished state, and yet we're no longer in the correct location, and yet it's brought out in many Chassidish Svarim, many spiritual texts, that Adar, the word Adar, comes, if you translate the word Adar into Hebrew, it would be the Aleph that's Dar, the Aleph that rests, the Aleph that is present in the Dira, in the home, which means the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the presence of Hashem, of the Shekhinah, of Hashem's light that was with us within exile. In fact, the Gemara, the tractate that speaks about this idea, Kol Makom Shegala Shekhinah Imam, the idea that every place that we were exiled, the Shekhinah was with us. And where the Gemara talks about the Shekhinah being in exile, in Beis Rabbeinu Shebabavel, and the Gemara is speaking about the various places where the Shekhinah was in the exile, is at the end of the tractate of Megillah, which is a tractate, the Masechta, that speaks on the laws and principles of Purim, which means there's a deeper connection between the idea of Kol Makom Shegala Shekhinah Imam, wherever we are, that's what Hashem's presence is. And Hashem is resting with us in our space, in our Makom. That even though we were ejected from our original place, the place of our origin, which is the Makom, the place, when it speaks about the encounter with Yaakov, that Yaakov goes to sleep, Vayifka b'makom, and he encounters the place, the essential place, the space, and that's the place of the Beis Hamikdash. That's the place of the temple. That's the place of the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, and that's the essential place. Adam b'makom kaparasa nivra. Man was created from his essential place, and where is his essential place? Man was created in the place of his atonement. And that's the place of the Mizbeach, that's the place of the altar that was in Yerushalayim. And that's why the Rambam says that Makom HaMizbeach b'chuvim b'yoysa, the place of the Mizbeach, is very particular. is very specific. That's the place that Avram brought a carbon, Yitzhak brought a carbon, Yaakov brought a carbon. These are the places of Karbonis, Adam, and then Adam Makom Kaparosi. The Rambam quotes this medrash that says the man was created in the place of his atonement, which means that's the essential place. The Makom HaKodesh HaKadosh, the place of the Holy of Holies, is like the Gemara says in Yuma, Menuhush Kol Olam Kulei. That's where the essential point of space through which all space expands from. So that's the essence of the space in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. And the story of Purim occurs when we were dispersed outside from that space. We're no longer in that space. So the question is, what happens in that space when we're no longer connected to our essential space? So, on the one hand, the way the Arizal reveals, the way the Holy Arizal, by Isaac Lurie, reveals what the idea of Purim is, we spoke about it last year at great length, is that there's a revealing, and Mordechai is connected to the Yesod Abba, which is the pleasure of wisdom. That's literally the way it would be translated. That's revealed in the nukva, in the container, in the vessel. That is revealed not only in the vessel of Leah, which is a place of hiddenness, but even in the vessel of Rachel, which is the revealed aspect, Amad Isgai, the revealed world, and it penetrates even outside, and it enters into the physical realm. That there is a type of light, divine light, that's revealed on Purim, which is very unique, because normally, without getting into the great length of this topic, that normally Malchus, the receiver, the vessel, which is the presence of the light of Hashem in this world, the way we experience it, is received through Zohar Ampin, through the transcendent one, which is Kudsha Brichu, the level of Kudsha Brichu, the transcendent one. And that's the light of Hashem, that we see the present light of Hashem in this world, which is, we see the hand of Hashem. And then there is Alakeim Shal Yisrael Yashanu. There's a time when Kudsha Brichu is entering it into a construct, an idea of sleep, of slumber, which is called the Mita de Zah. That Zah is in a state of slumber. Zohar Ampin is a state of slumber. The small face is a state of slumber, which means that we're in a state of exile. We don't see the hand of Hashem clearly. And the purpose for that, without getting to the great length of this topic, the purpose of that is so we should enter into a face-to-face relationship, upon a relationship on a higher level. But what happens in this process is that Malchus, which is us, which also represents us, become vested with a light that's even higher than Zohar Ampin, which is not light of Yesod Abba. So we'll just hold that for a moment, and we'll get back to it a little further on. But let's understand a little bit, what does it mean that the entire idea of Purim represents a Yom Tov, a holiday, that is in Chutzlar, it's outside of our space, outside of our original space. So the Gemara in Megillah Zayin Amud Beis, the Gemara in 7b says like this. The Gemara talks about the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos, that you have to give Ishul Reyu, you have to send messengers to give gifts to each other. And a person has to give more Matanas Levionim, he has to give more charity for the poor, gifts for the poor. And like the Yerushalmi, the beginning of Yerushalmi says that whoever opens their house, you have to give them, which represents the idea of openness and giving and charitable. That's the idea of Purim. And then the Gemara says that there was two people, Abaya bar Avin and Rav Chanina bar Avin. These two sages, Abaya and Rav Chanina, that Mechalfu Sadayu Ladadi, that they would exchange their meals with each other. What exactly it means, we'll see for it in a second. But this is what it literally says, that they would exchange meals with each other on Purim. Now, this exact language of that Mechalfi Sudasayab Ladadi, that they would exchange meals with each other, is also quoted in another Gemara. The Gemara in Moed Cotton 27b, Chazayin on the base, the Gemara talks about Sudas Havar, the Gemara talks about a person that's an aval, a person that's a mourner, that just experienced the burial of a parent, for example, God forbid. And the halacha is, the law is, that this person should not make his own meal, this individual person, but people should send over a meal for them, and they should eat of other people's food. And the Gemara says that Rabbah and Rabbi Yosef, which were two contemporaries, and Bar Pluktas, they had Rav and Rabbi Yosef, these two great sages in the Talmud, also, Machaftas Udai La'adadi would exchange meals with each other, which means simply that when one was in mourning, the other one sent his meal to the other sage, to his friend, and when the other person was mourning, let's say Rabbi lost a parent, Rabbi Yosef sent a meal to him, and then when Rabbi Yosef lost a parent, Rabbi sent him a meal. That's Machafas Udai La'adadi. They exchange meals with each other. That's the same language. So let's try to understand, is there any connection between these two teachings, between the Gemara's teaching that speaks about Purim, where there was an exchange of meals, and the idea of Avelis in a time of mourning, and they exchange meals. Is there any connection between these two ideas of changing of meals? Now let's get back to the Gemara Megillah. Let's get back to the Gemara with regards to Purim. So with regards to Purim, it says that they would exchange meals with each other. That Abai bar Oven and Rachanina bar Oven would exchange meals with each other. What does it mean that they exchange meals with each other? So if you look at the Rambam, and that's also the way it's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, and this is the psak, this is the law, this is the way it's written. This is what the Rambam writes. The Rambam writes in the Laws of Megillah in 215. V'chol hamarba l'shloach l're'ei meshubach, whoever sends shloach manas, whoever sends a lot of foods to their friends is praiseworthy. It's a nice custom to do in Purim, not just to give to people, but to give as many as you can. V'meiloi, but what happens if a person doesn't have? A person doesn't have extra. A person, let's say, is not a wealthier person. So what do? Imeiloi, machlifim chaveri. What you should do is, if you don't have enough to give to another person, and the other person also doesn't have enough to give, so what you should do with your friend is you should exchange meals. Zeh sholech lezeh. You send your meal that you prepare for Purim to eat, you send it to your friend, and your friend will send his meal or her meal to you, and then then you fulfill the Mishloach Manos. Therefore, you fulfill the obligation of sending friends to each other. So what you do with friends, food to each other. So which means, since you don't have enough for yourself to give to another person, so what you do is you exchange. Whatever you have, you give to your friend. Whatever your friend has, you give to you. And each one exchanges the meals with each other. And therefore, you fulfill the obligation of Mishloach Manos Ish L'Reu, which is the minimal obligation of to give to one person some food, two foods. So you set your meal, and that's when you fulfill your obligation to give it. This is the simple reading of that teaching, of exchanging meals. To fulfill the obligation of Mishloach Manos, of giving meals, of sending your friends food. Rashi, who's not a Paisek, Rashi is a commentary. Rashi comments on this Gemara, and Rashi writes that Zeh oichelim zeh b'purim shana zu u'b'shniya chaver soyedimay. That means Machafas Udai La'adadi means they exchange meals with each other. Means 1 year Abaya ate by Rav Chanina the Sudas Yamtiv, the meal of Yamtiv. A separate thing, and the next year, Rav Chanina ate by Abaya the meal of Yom Tov, and then the next year, exchange. Each year they alternated between one eating at each other. So the question is, the obvious question is, which the Beis Yosef asks, Rabbi Yosef Kaira asks, Tafresh Tzadik Hey, Norachaim. The simple question is, what do you gain by this? If the issue is, like the way the Rambam reads it, if the issue is, so you should fulfill the obligation of sending food to each other. So if I sent you in year 2020 food, and you sent me back a meal in year 2000, or if I go to eat by you a meal in 2020, and then you come to eat by me in 2021, so what did you gain? In 2020, when I went to eat by you, I didn't give you Mishloach Manos. I didn't send you any food to fulfill the obligation of Mishloach Manos, of sending food to each other. Because I came to you to eat. And even the person that's hosting the food, that's hosting the meal, how does he fulfill his obligation of Mishloach Manos, of giving another person a meal? Mishloach Manos means literally you send to your friend a meal, not the other person that comes and eat by you. So both in both directions, it doesn't really make any sense. What's the purpose for that? So the Bach writes on the Torah, the Bach writes that the purpose of Mishloach Manos, the purpose of Mishloach Manos, of why do we have to send foods to each other on Purim? Why is there a mitzvah to do that? It's to bring out reyes, to bring out joy and friendship and camaraderie. This is the idea of giving food to each other. So the Bach says, maybe this is what Rashi is saying. Just by the fact that each one ate a meal by each other, if I come to you to eat, what's the essence of the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos, of sending gifts, of sending food to each other, is so it should bring friendship. So if I'm coming to eat by you, certainly the person that's hosting is drawing friendship, and even the person that's participating and coming to the other person's house, it's a mark of friendship, and therefore you fulfill the obligation. It's a big tzarachin, it's very complicated to say this, because Mishloach Manos literally means you send something to somebody else, not that you come to the person to eat by you, and certainly the person that's eating by you is not fulfilling the obligation. So it's interesting what this means. If you look at what does Rashi mean, if you look at the Megillah itself, in the Megillah, not the Gemara, but actually the Megillah Esther, the scroll of Esther. So there's a passage that says at the end of Megillah, in Perek Tes, it says, "Vayamim ha'elun niskarim v'nasim, v'chol dor v'dor mishpacha mishpacha." Vayamim ha'elun niskarim v'nasim. These days are remembered and done. Every generation and every family. So Rashi writes like this: Niskarim, they're remembered. What does it mean that Niskarim, they're remembered? Remember, there are four basic mitzvahs, obligations that we have to fulfill on Purim. One is to read a Megillah. One is to have a festive meal and to eat and drink. One is Mishloach Manos, to send another person some food, 2 items of food to another friend. And Matanos Iverim, to give gifts to the poor, plural gifts to many poor. These are the four mitzvahs. So the 4 obligations on Purim. So when it says Niskarim, Rashi says that it's remembered. How do you remember the story of Purim? Rashi says B'kriyas Megillah. That's the reading of Megillah. So you fulfill the obligation of reading Megillah. Nasim, what does it mean that we do it? What do you do on Purim? Not just remembering. Remembering is a thought process, more cerebral process to remember. That's reading the Megillah, thinking about the Megillah. Nasim is something we do. Rashi says Mishta, it's a meal, to make a Sudas Purim, a festive meal. The Simcha, Mishta is also to drink, have a festive meal with food and drink. The Yom Tov, and it's a celebration. Losis manes umatanes, to give manes, to give mishloach manes, to give foods to each other, and to give matanes, to give gifts to the poor. So those are the 4 obligations, right? Niskarim v'nasim, remember, and to do is the 4 obligations. Then what does it say? B'chol dor v'dor mishpacha v'mishpacha. What does it mean every generation and every family? Rashi says, Mis'asri yachad v'oichel v'shoisim, that they gather together, families gather together, and they eat and drink. That there's an idea for families to share a common meal on Purim. That not only is it a mitzvah to celebrate on Purim and make a festive meal on Purim, but you should endeavor to do this meal with family. And Rashi, in the Gemara, in Daf Zayin and 7b, is consistent with Rashi here in the Megillah Esther. Because Rashi over there says that there were 2 sages. One is called Abaye bar Avin, and one was called Rabbi Chanina bar Avin. Now, if you pay close attention, you'll see that Abaye's father is Avin, and Chanina's father is Avin, which means they were brothers. So when Chazal say that they exchanged meals with each other, these 2 brothers, and Rashi says that each one came to eat by another person in alternating years, what Rashi is really saying, because they came to celebrate it as mishpacha, as a family and a family. Since on Purim, it's not just the mitzvah to eat a festive meal on Purim, but on Purim you also have to eat together with your family. So therefore, what Rashi says is when you had 2 brothers that were celebrating Purim, each one come eat by each other, and that's the way they would celebrate together as a family. So it has nothing to do with Mishloach Manos, it has nothing to do with sending gifts to a friend, it has nothing to do with Matanas Levyanim, certainly not to giving gifts to the poor, but it's literally, and not to do with the Sudas Purim itself, but it has to do with the mitzvah, the specific element of the mitzvah, which is the idea to celebrate together as a family, mishpacha. So let's try to understand this. What is this idea of specifically eating as a family? um, in a microcosm and in a macrocosm level. Let's go back to the other teaching, the other Gemara, which is that Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef would exchange their meals with each other. That machluf sedasai about that. They would exchange their meals with each other, which is a time of avelis, the time of their mourning. In mourning, when God forbid a person loses a parent, and it's no matter the age, when a person loses a parent, there's a certain sense of losing your footing in this world, losing your Makom, your space. Certainly a person has a healthy relationship with their parents. A parent, if you're a parent or you're a child, is someone that gives another person, their child, a space in the world. It's not just on a literal level, a home to live in, but they carve out a space within this world where the child can flourish, can grow, can become. The parent that's a good parent carves out a space for the child that the child feels this is their secure space, this is their makom, this is their ground of being, this is who I am, this is where I'm coming from, this is where my roots are rooted, and that's the place where I flower, and that's the place that even if I travel and journey onwards and move in all different directions in this world, there's still a place where you can come back to, whether it's a literal home or a conceptual space by your parents, which is that you're coming home. There's a certain level of that's the makom, that's the shorish, that's the source of my being, of my space, my carved out space. Hine makom iti. Hashem Kaviyachal also does that with Moshe Rabbeinu. It says, I've carved out a space for you on the mountain where you can be with me. But really, every parent is really doing this to a child. And that's why, God forbid, when a person loses a parent, there's a sense of that loss of that makom. It's similar to an exile, not an exile of space, which we said before is the idea which the story of Purim occurs, but more a conceptual idea of exile, where I lost my space, my capital space, quote unquote space, my essence, where I'm rooted. That's when a person experiences aveilus. A person experiences mourning. That's why there's a lack of joy. There's a lack of joy in a person's space because space gives up the possibility of joy. And when a person comes to console a person that's going through a mourning process, and we say that Hashem should bring you comfort, God should give you comfort, the name that we use for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the name that we use for Hashem, is Hamakom. Hamakom Yinachem Eschem, the space, the essential space, the root of all space, should give you comfort. Why do we use that phrase of Hamakom Yinachem Eschem? Why don't we say that Hashem Yinachem Eschem, Hashem should give you comfort, or Eka should give you comfort, Yud Vavke or Adonai, you can use any name of Hashem, or Kel Rachum, the compassionate one, should give you comfort. Why do we use Hamakom, the space? Because we're telling the mourner, the person that's going through this mourner process, is that you lost your space. And what you're feeling in this world is a certain almost detachment or uncertainty of root, of source. And we say, Hashem should give you, Hashem, who is the Makom Shalom, who is the source of all space, should give you back your space. Should make you feel that comfort again. Should make you feel that you belong, that you have a place in this world, that you have a place that you can always draw from. That's the Hashem should give you that sense of even though my parents have left me, and a person's parent has passed on, Hashem will gather me, and Hashem will give me that strength to find my makom in this world, to find my place in this world. There's a machlokes, is an argument in Rav and Shmuel, in Eruvin, Ayin Beis, Eruvin 72, that the Gemara talks over there about the laws of Eruvin, the laws of making an Erev, joining courtyards or joining homes to make it as a singular home for the laws of Shabbos. And the Gemara says that what's the place of what's the ikar place of a person? What is the main place? Where's the Makom dirase? Where's his space of his dwelling? So Rav says it's Makom pita. It's the place of his bread. Wherever a person eats, that's his home. That's the place where he is living. So let's say a person, and Shmuel says that it's wherever a person sleeps. So if you ask yourself the question, what defines a home for even an adult person? What is the place of your home? Is a place where you celebrate life in terms of eating, which is the opinion of Rav, or is the place where you rest? Is that the place of your home where you come to rejuvenate? The place of Shina, the place of Lina. The law follows Rav. The law follows Allah like Rav, Archaim, and Shinayim, which is with regards to the laws of Erevin, and we follow that's Makom Pita. It's the place of a person's bread. In general, this is the law. We follow the idea of the place of a person's bread. Okay. When the Gemara says that Rav and Rabbi Yosef, when they were in a state of mourning, they would exchange meals with each other. What did each one do? Each one sent the meal that they prepared for themselves, they sent it to their friend. That's the Makom Pita. That's the place of their bread, which means they participated in the other person's lack of space or the loss of space, and they participate in the process of healing by offering their own space to another person, to their friend. That's what it really means to give a meal to another person. To give the meal to another person, especially a meal that you prepared for yourself or in your own home, and then to share with another person, means I'm taking something that I have, that's my space, something that's my makom, which is my space. And I know that you're struggling now, that you can't find your space. And I'm saying Hashem should give you, Hashem should give you this comforting, the space that you can find yourself, but I want to participate in this. I also want to try to bring you comfort. And the process of comforting is to share food with another person. Not shared food that you buy in a store, but share food really that you even that would also work on some level. But certainly food that you prepared, something that comes from your own home, and to share with another person is telling the other, in their own home, is saying, I'm extending my home into your home. I'm giving some of my space to you that you can find yourself again. And I'm going to be there for you as a friend. I'm going to be there for you and help you find your footing again in this world. And even though you lost your parent, I still have a home. This is the place of my Makom Pita, this is the place of my bread, and I'm going to share it with you and allow you to grow and to heal, to rehabilitate, to allow yourself to become again in a healthy way. And of course, that's the opposite also. When the other sage lost his parent, the other one sent him his meal. That's the idea of exchanging the meals. So exchanging meals with each other means giving over a little bit of our own space to another person, making the space from ourselves, taking the space from our rootedness, and we feel very secure in our own space, and saying, I'm giving you that sense of security as well. I want to hold you in my space. I want to give you some of my space for you to become. And this is really the parallel story with regards to Purim. Just like we have the idea of exchanging meals with regards to mourning, it's the same idea with exchanging meals on Purim. That the story of Purim, like I said before, the story of Purim is a nation of chutzlar. It's a miracle that happens in exile. Exile is a sense of alienation, a sense of disconnect, a separation, estrangement that we collectively, after the destruction of the first base of Mikdash, after the destruction of the temple, which was our Makom, which is our space, our essential space, we were rejected, we were dispersed. We were dispersed in every place. And what's the miracle of Purim? The miracle of Purim is that Hashem says that even though it appears to be that you don't have a space and you're lost, and what we're going to do about it in terms of our practice, we're going to share our space with other people in exile, which is not just share our space, but even historically, if you think about this historically, in terms of what gave us an ability to survive exile, is a certain sense of knowing that no matter where we went, where we wandered throughout the world, there was always a shul or a person that would welcome us no matter where, in any town, in any city that we went to. There was a certain sense of wandering, a certain sense of loss, a certain sense of exile. But the Beis HaKnesses is the Beis HaMedrash, the shul, the sanctuary, and a person's home, which is Machnes Orech, is like a sanctuary. It's like a Beis HaKnesses, like the Mashrat, some Sefer, right? And any place that we went in the world, that was the place that we were able to find our home. So even in the exile, there was a place that we were able to find our home. But on a much more meta level, this entire story, the idea of Purim, and that's why the Gemara says, the Talmud that speaks about Kol Makom Shel Shechina, wherever we went, the Shechina rests there. Which in the Gemara, the Talmud itself, it's very localized. It's a particular Shechina that rests in a particular place. But later, the mystical masters, later the more Pnimis of Torah, from the inner aspects of Torah, was revealed that Kol Makom Shel Shechina literally means that wherever a person is journeying, Hashem is present with you, wherever you are. A person is never elent. A person is never alone. This is one of the things that the Baal Shem Tov said. That one of the things that he's trying to teach the world, that a Yid is never alone. A person is never alone. Hashem is always with us. And this is what happens in the story of Purim. That there was the Aleph that was Dar. There was the Aleph that rested in that place. There was a revealing that despite the fact that it seems to be externally, that we have no space, and we are rejected from our essential space. We're dispersed, we're exiled, we're estranged from the essential space of where we are. But the nekuda, the essence of any space, the nekuda pnimius, the essence of any space, is really the space of the Beis HaMikdash. Is the place of the Beis HaMikdash, is the place of the temple. Because because everything originates in the original space. So all the manifestation of space really originates back into that nekuda, that essence of that space. And that was the miracle of Purim. The miracle of Purim was that Hashem showed us that despite being in exile, despite experiencing ourselves as being in exile, Hashem is with us. And Hashem is holding us. And we're in Hashem's space. And in Hashem's space, in the infinite space, in the Nekuda space, within all the manifestations of space, is always the space that Hashem is holding us in. And this is revealed in the story of Purim. That's why it's a Nesher B'chutz La'aretz. And this is why, paradoxically, Purim, on the one hand, seems to be in the form of Giluyim, in the form of revelation, seems to be a lower level of Yom Tov. And therefore, even the idea of Yom Tov, the idea of Yom Tov holiday. So the Rama writes in Yom Tov that the definition of Yom Tov is that we don't do malacha, we don't do any physical mundane activity. You don't drive a car, you don't fly on a plane, whatever the action that you're doing, you don't do on Yom Tov, because that's what Yom Tov is. We're resting from those types of actions. On Purim on one level, it's not Yom Tov. In the Megillah, the first time it says they accepted upon themselves as a Yom Tov, and the second time when it repeats, it doesn't say the word they accepted upon themselves as a celebration. It doesn't say they accepted upon a Yom Tov, and the Chazal say that it was not a day that it's a Yom Tov. It's not a day that's forbidden from work, from mundane activities. So in terms of Giluyim, in the world of revelation, it seems to be a lower level of Yom Tov. But on a deeper level, on the level of Atzmi, on the level of the essence, it's even a higher quality. Let's try to explain it like this. In order for us to enter into a state of Yom Tov generally, in order for us to be connected to the light of that Yom Tov, that particular holiday, we have to transcend self in order or transcend our mundane self, our corporeal self, our physical self, on some level, in order to attach ourselves to something that's transcendent. It's a type of transcendence that in order to enter into that state of consciousness and to be connected with that light, we have to stop being us in this world. We have to stop manifesting on the mundane level, withdraw from that, and then we can enter into that level. It's a type of spiritual high that in order to experience it, or the way it's experienced, is a certain level of detachment of the normal mundane. I'll give you an analogy of this in terms of, let's say, love. So there's a type of love, and the whole idea of Purim is that Hadar Kiblu Ba'ava, that they received the Torah, re-accepted the Torah, particularly the Torah Shabbat, the oral aspects of the Torah. That was the revealing of that level. That's the beginning of the sages, the time period of the sages, the oral Torah, the revealing of the oral Torah. And it was done specifically with love, not through coercion, not through force, but through love. So in love, there's a type of love that's called a love that's begilui, a revealed love. And when a person experiences love that's a gilui love, a revealed love, a revelational love, it comes not at the expense, almost there's a certain type of cancellation of the normative type of experiences of life. Let's say a person falls in love. And let's say it's a true love, and it's a holy love, and it's a noble love. Let's say it's a real love. A person falls in love. But when a person falls in love and they're very, passionate, they're very elated, they have an expansiveness, there's a certain type of detachment from their regular life that normally they live very mundane, pedestrian lives. And then when a person falls in love, they're in a euphoric state that's very detached from the normal state. Someone saying a person's in love, wait till they land or something. And there's some depth to that statement, because when a person's in love, there's a gilui of that love, there's a revealing of that type of love. It's a love that transcends or takes you out of the normative experiences of your life. That's one type of love. And that's a passionate love, excited love, and a revealed love. And then there's another type of love, and they're not mutually exclusive, but there's another type of love that generally happens. It's not so much with the birth of a child, because that would be more also a relational type of love, a revealed type of love, a euphoric type of love, but your relationship with your 10-year-old child, or your 30-year-old child, or your 50-year-old child, doesn't matter. Or you're the parent, and it's or you're the child, and you're in a relationship to your parents. The relationship of a parent to a child, and not at the moments of birth or the specific moments of their marriage or their bar mitzvah, not something extraordinary that's happening in their life, just day-to-day life. The relationship or the love that a parent has for a child is an essence relation, an essence love. It's a love that's not revealed. You're not walking around on cloud 9 and dancing because, I'm in love with my 30-year-old child, but that love is unshakable. That love is your essence. And there's nothing more important in the world than your love to your child. So there's two types of love. There's one love that's a relational love, which is a gilui. It takes us out of our life, out of the experience of life. And it comes at a certain period of time. And unfortunately, sometimes it also passes. It's an experience. And by definition, experience means that it has an end and beginning. It's some type of euphoric type of experience. But then there's something that's an essence connection. So on the level of a revelation, Yom Tov is much higher. Yom Tov is much higher because it's a revealed level of Hashem's presence in this world. A revealed love. Hashem loved us, takes us out of Mitzrayim. But in order to take us out of Egypt, there's an extraordinary events happen, and there's a shattering of all the natural, normal course of nature. Because the experience is a type of love that takes you out of the normative, mundane type of experiences. It was experienced that way, and therefore our reaction to it and the way we tap into it is also through a type of transcendence. So if normally mundane, we take a car and we go to work, that's what we do. On Yom Tov, you don't do that because there was an extraordinary type of revealing of love, which is euphoric and something that takes us out of the experience of normal life. And therefore, in order for us to tap into that, we do the same. But what is Purim? Purim is on the level of revealing, it's not a Yom Tov. But Purim reveals the atzmistic connection, the essence connection that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Hashem, the essence connection. In the essence connection, it's not necessarily revealed. So in the essence connection it's not necessarily in Eretz Yisrael. That would be a revealing of Hashem's presence, a revealing of a connection. But it could be also in exile. It could be, in fact, sometimes giluyim, sometimes revelational aspects of love, of expressions, conceal essence aspects of connections. And sometimes it's specifically within the essence type of connections where it's not a revelational and it's not revealed in any manifestation. It just is. It's just a deep, intimate connection that transcends everything. That's always there. It's always present. That's what Ari is saying. It's the Yisoid Abba. It's the connection that we have to the highest levels of Keser Kol Aksarim, of Kacha, the level of Keser Kol Aksarim, which is the crown of all crowns. It's the essence connection that we have that Hashem has with us, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with us, Hashem has with us, and it's the essence of connection that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, in Purim, what we do is we express ourselves, or better yet, we be ourselves in the most way of being. Because Purim is just about our essence of ourself, and in the essence of ourself, on Purim we do everything ourself almost in an exaggerated form. So if regularly you eat, on Purim you eat a little more. Regularly maybe you drink, I don't know if you should, but you drink a little bit more. On a regular day you learn, today you even learn more Torah. Regularly you read the Torah, today you read more Torah. Everything you're doing, you give charity, today you give even more charity. Everything you do even more. Because we're saying it's in the place of self, the essence of ourself. And therefore sometimes the way we enter that place is specifically Adar, by not knowing. Because when we know something and we're intellectually aware of the process of the connection, that in itself is a separation. If I'm aware of myself listening to music and how delightful the music is, then I'm separated from the music. There's an overlay of my intelligence that separates me from the experience. And the only way to experience true music is just to be in the experience of music. And that's what Purim is. Sometimes we just need to be with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or reveal the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or to be in the state with Hashem in a place that we just are. And in the place that we just are, just who we are in that essence is Ba'ava. That's our connection that we have with Hashem, and that's the connection that Hashem has with us, and that's everlasting and it's always. If it's exile, it's not exile, it's in our high and our low, whatever state we are, and wherever condition that we are, whatever state of consciousness that we're functioning on, we're always in our essence connected with Hashem, connected to righteousness and to justice and to goodness. And that shows up. That shows up when a person, drinks to a place where they're no longer aware. But when a person says we're no longer aware, it doesn't mean that you act, silly and do harmful things. On the contrary, what comes out on Purim is a tremendous amount of love that a person has towards other people and to Hashem, and that's the ultimately even a deeper level, which is that Purim is not only is an essence holiday, it's Suma Shel Yom, the essence of the day. Like the Zohar says that Nagdama, the Zohar says that Purim is like Kippurim, is like the Yom Kippurim, like the day of Kippurim. The Day of Atonement is like Purim, because Purim is even higher on a certain state, on a certain level, because it's revealed as its essence. It's Suma Shel Yom, the essence of the day. But on Purim, on Yom Kippur, the essence of the day is by absence, which is there's no Giluyim at all. That's the whole idea, that there's not a Giluyim, there's not a place of expression. And on Purim, it's the essence that's revealed in the place of the Giluyim, in the place of the expression, in the place of our joy and our happiness and celebration. And this is what we celebrate on Purim. So really Purim is the Nakuda, is the point of every day, every moment. And therefore Purim is seen as not just the final holiday of the year, because if you go through the Yom Tovim, Purim is in the 12th month of the year, but even deeper level, Purim is actually the first month of the future, the first celebration, the first Yom Tov of Las Love, of the future. That's why in the beginning, in the story of Purim, the first Purim, the story of Purim was that Esther fasted, and the of fasting on the night of Pesach. They pushed aside Pesach, which means that the first Purim comes into this world by transcending even Pesach. Pesach is the first Yom Tov of the three Yom Tovs, about the Achar, three Yom Tovs, three celebrations of the year, which is the beginning of our process of in the exile state. in a redemptive state. And then there's the story of Purim, which is the beginning of the future and the present. The future and the present. Okay. Everyone should have a wonderful and holy and transcendent Purim.